Welcome to the meeting of the Licensing Act Subcommittee today. My name is Graham White. I'm the solicitor for Shropshire Council advising the committee today. I have to tell you that the meeting is being live streamed and it is being recorded, and the public will be able to view the meeting using the link that's attached in the agenda. At the start, right now, I'll ask members of the committee, officers and those making representations to introduce themselves, and ask that when you do make your representations, you can ensure that you introduce yourselves and the microphone is turned on so that everybody watching the live stream is able to hear what's being said. So the first thing is to ask the members to introduce themselves. So I've asked Councillor.
I'm Councillor Peter Broomwell from the Wen Division.
Councillor Royal Croft from Market Drayton East.
Councillor Mary Davis from Abbey.
Thank you very much. Now I'll ask the officers to introduce themselves. So, in the corner.
Tim Ward, Committee Officer.
Michelle Parker, Housing and Licensing Lawyer for Shropshire Council.
Ross O'Neill, Licensing Officer.
Thank you very much. And also those people making representations, I've got a list of people who've indicated that they would be looking to speak. So if I could just go through the names and see if you're here. But Sue Campbell, yeah, great. Jane Hallam, thank you. Jonathan Edwards.
Apologies for Mr. Edwards, he's unwell.
Okay, thank you. Marilyn Gaunt, yeah. Jill George.
Yeah.
Peter Salter.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Linda Senior and Councillor Ginger. No. That's it. Also Lorraine Lawrence. Thank you very much. And Andy Boddington.
Yeah.
That's councillor for one of the Ludlow divisions, and also Tracy Huffer.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Right, so the first item on the agenda is the election of chairman. So if I could ask members for nominations for chairman, please.
I'd like to propose Royal Croft.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Allcroft, over to you.
Committee has read and considered the representations and evidence submitted by all parties in relation to the application. Therefore, presentations should be succinct and kept to a brief summary of key points. There is no need to read out written representations or reiterate the details of written representations at great length. We've already read that. The chair will intervene if it is felt that presentations are becoming overly long or going off track or do not relate to the application being considered. The procedure for the hearing has been sent to you prior to the hearing. In general, we will aim to keep to this order of business to ensure the timely and fair conduct of the hearing for all parties. If it is felt necessary during the course of the hearing, the committee may make a decision to deviate from the procedure. This is at the committee's discretion. There are opportunities throughout the hearing for each party to ask questions of others and following their presentations. Please ensure that you use this opportunity to ask questions only, not to make any further points or statements. It is for the chair to decide if questions are appropriate and relate to the matter in hand. Any behaviour considered to be disruptive by the chair may lead to parties being muted or asked to leave the meeting. Does anybody have any questions regarding the hearing process or how the hearing may be conducted? Thank you. Right, we have a question for the licensing officer. Have any of the representations been withdrawn?
One chair representations withdrawn as per the my report. So CUSAC and half a representation withdrawn as well by one of the male parties, but none since the weekend as far as I'm aware.
Right, thank you. Would any other party like to present or present Got that all wrong, didn't I? Would any party present like to withdraw their representation? No. Okay, we'll move on. Does any party have any evidence not already submitted which they would like to put forward for consideration? Please be aware that this can only be done with the agreement of all other parties present and the subcommittee, and may necessitate the hearing to be adjourned so it can be properly considered by all parties and the subcommittee. Members are reminded to disclose any registrable or non-registrable interest in any matters to be discussed. If, following the declaration of an interest, any party feels a member's decision making it may be prejudiced, they can make it known. The hearing may then be adjourned so the committee can be reappointed. Can the licensing officer introduce themselves and present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Ross O'Neill, so I'm the Public Protection Officer.
Sorry, Ross, could you speak into the microphone? And we can
Certainly can. Is that better?
Oh,
Amy?
go for it.
So I'm the Public Protection Officer working with the licensing team responsible for this report. So you're here today to consider a new premises licence application. It's been applied for by Articulate, in brackets Shropshire Limited, for Unit 2 SY8 Studios in Ludlow. You'll find Appendix A and B of your report are a map and photographs to help you set the scene. The application wants to set up a co-working small event space for consumption of on and off alcohol sales, and also the provision for showing films within the venue. The premises is accessed by Ludlow Community Hospital, and Appendix C and D of the report are the application form and the plan submitted by the applicants. So during consultation, environmental protection, trading standards, the police and public health all submitted representations. The applicant has agreed to all conditions as set out in paragraph 8 of my report. So Appendix E is a consolidated document to show the conditions that have currently been agreed by the applicants, including the changes of times, also taking into account anything that's on the original application form as well. No representations are outstanding of any authorities. So during the consultation period, we had 18 representations which were received of other persons against this application. They have all been given the benefit of the doubt as per the 182 guidance to allow them to amplify their concerns to you today. Appendix F is a map to show the locations of representations, and G 1 to 17 are the representations in full. CUSAC, as mentioned before, withdrew their representations during this period before today's hearing, but that's not been included. While Farley withdrew his on sales concerns, he changed his and added further support and evidence in relation to sales, so that should be in your report as well. There were 12 representations received also in support of this application. Appendix H 1 to 12 attach the reports are for you to take a look at as well. Since the report was written, there was further support information. So to go through these, we have received a map and an aerial view shot from the applicants, and then they also submitted a separate link to a video of the premises for a video by YouTube. We also received an application of Byrne, one of the people that put representations in, which included a list of all the names from nurses. That document received, and Jill George also submitted a document in relation to supporting information and a further exterior proximity as well, or photographs to show that. So you should have all those additional documents since my report, which hopefully committee services have provided for. So to clarify, this application is a new premises licence application. It's to allow daily alcohol sales for consumption on and off the premises and to show films. And there are outstanding representations, hence why we're here today. So the reason you're here today is to consider and determine the application. And to do this, you must give appropriate weight to the steps that are necessary to promote the 4 licensing objectives. Any representations the 182 guidance of the Licensing Act 2003 and Shropshire Council's Licensing Policy 2019. You then may grant the application in full or in part, subject to such conditions deemed necessary and appropriate to the 4 objectives, that you also may refuse, if deemed appropriate, also in relation to the 4 licence and objectives. When it comes to your decision, it must be justified and provide supporting evidence after to all parties involved, and the decision can be appealed within 21 days of all parties receiving the decision. That's it for me, Chair.
Thank you. Right, now we've got an opportunity to ask relevant questions of the licensing officer, and the order in which we will take questions is firstly from the applicant.
We've got no questions.
No questions, thank you. Any other questions for the licensing officer?
Sorry, it's like
Questions.
Can I take that from a member of the public?
Yeah. It's not, it's representations, so they are parts.
Sorry?
They have the representations in the so.
Right. Okay.
shall I use it?
Certainly.
Thank you, Councillor. This is on paragraph 7.1 at the top of page 3, Ross, and you write about the films to be shown predominantly in the first floor room for an audience of approximately 10 to 20 people. I just wondered, because it is actually quite a contentious issue, I just wondered what was known more generally, or what you'd established about general attendance at events. I believe the alcohol licence applies to 90 square metres, 2 rooms with a capacity of 30 people each, according to the fire service. Previously, the applicant spoke at a 13th of January meeting about the use of only 1 room most of the time, but leaving open the possibility of using both rooms on other occasions. And I know the licensing guy's submission of 17th January says, incidentally, only 1 room will be in operation at any given time. But it kind of feels a little bit like over the last few weeks, the reported potential numbers have got less and less and less, but there doesn't seem to me to be an actual condition that would stop the 2 rooms being used to capacity. And I just wondered if that was something that you could firm up or give clarity on.
Everything you've got, I've got. So in relation to people in premises, the fire risk assessment is the limit they can have. If there's concerns about the application, how many they put in relation to planning or licensing, and there's concerns, that's something you can raise during the hearing, potentially look at the committee to look at conditions. Those conditions that are on the licence so far are what's been agreed. If there's nothing in relation to numbers and you've got concerns that the max capacity for the fire risk assessment is too much, that's something you need to discuss during the hearing. But as everything you've got, I've got the same as you at the minute.
That's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. John.
Linda Senior. I'm not sure if the question's actually for you, Ross, or the applicant. The alcohol licence is now set to run from noon to 9 p.m. and the premises close at 10:30, I believe. Does that imply a very long drinking up time? Would it be possible, for example, for customers to buy several drinks to keep them going for the next hour and a half up until 9 o'clock? And then keep them going until the end of the event?
Yeah, the sales bar plus do the appropriation. So if the time stops at a certain time, then that's when afterwards are called. So the consumption isn't the license activity, it's the appropriation. So normally when the sales take place. So yes, if there is additional hours, however, if there's closing times and obviously any planning permission on that premises, then obviously they would take precedence. But in relation to premises where we have potential parties or private events, at what point would we get involved? It's difficult, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with the actual licensable activities.
Thank you.
Right. Any others? No.
No, Peter.
It doesn't matter. Why do you feel the need to have a license?
Really, this is options for me in a minute. If you've got any questions,
Oh, sorry, no.
you'll get chance in a minute to speak. Thank you.
Nice. Committee. Questions? Right. We've done that bit. Can the applicant introduce themselves and present the application, please?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nick from the licensing guys, and we're representing the applicant here today. It's actually a company, but it's in the person of Annabelle de Chiassini. The applicant is indeed Articulate Shropshire Limited Trading as Gather. This will be a co-working space primarily, catering for a maximum of 50 co-workers with approximately 20 desk spaces across 90 square metres. We shared a video of the undertaking that I hope you've all watched online. Co-working spaces allow business people to take a desk or meeting room for a matter of a few hours per week and conduct their business in a convivial yet professional setting. That is the principal use of the building. Now, I note your advice at the beginning of the hearing that you don't want us to go on too long. I've got a 20-minute presentation to put you in possession of the whole overview, but if you really don't want to hear that, I'll cut it down to the absolute minimum. Okay? Yeah. The present scope of the license requested is on sales from 12 until 9 all week and off sales 12 until 5:30 and the showing of films until 10 o'clock at night. That's it. Therefore, these premises do not equate to a pub, club, or other like establishment. All events or workshops such as film shows or short educational talks will be ticketed. The applicant simply seeks to be able to retail small quantities of locally sourced as artisan wines and beers to the attendees at these events. Therefore, the nature of licensable activities sought are actually de minimis, though an income stream to support the wider programming, such as community projects and vocational arts programs. Our sales are also sought as an additional facility to retail the same sort of locally sought products, predominantly by means of an online pick, pack and dispatch operation akin to the pre-existing coffee business on site. 100 Hats Coffee already collaborate with local breweries on coffee brews, coffee stouts, coffee liqueurs, and require the ability for people to purchase these online for delivery via third-party reputable couriers or pre-arranged pickup site. So all these spaces are private. Nobody can simply walk in off the street to access them. You need to be a member of Gather, which currently the membership fee just to start is £170, and you have to have a key fob issued to members or have booked in an appointment to use the facilities. Therefore, nobody drinking on those premises will be unknown. Unlike a pub when anyone can just walk in, you don't know who they are. Okay, these premises, the operators will already know the name, address, and contact details for the people drinking on site. Right, so there we go. So cutting it right down then, there will be no permanent bar installed. In fact, all the furniture is flexible and movable. We're not opening that restaurant, coffee shop or a bar, or a shop indeed. This will be no Wetherspoons, party venue or banging nightclub. We've simply applied for a licence that is flexible to respond to the different kinds of events where the consumption of alcohol is not a principal activity, but ancillary to the main attraction. Now, as you're aware, I'll obviously defer to the lawyers in the room, but each application must be judged on its own facts and merits. Significantly, the merits of this application are the application has been prepared and constructed so as to comply with all aspects of your licensing statements and licensing policy, thereby minimising the potential for that any licensing objective will be undermined. To that end, a significant raft of proposal of conditions was proposed, and furthermore they've been added to by the like all your licensing experts in Shropshire being responsible authorities. I point you to Appendix E, which has been very helpfully and professionally produced by Mr. O'Neill here, that will tell you exactly the scope of that licence application as it stands now, not as it stood when first applied for. Okay, so the significant thing I want to point out when it comes to responsible authorities is this: these are your licensing experts in Shropshire. The police have no issue with it. Trading standards, environmental health, public protection, children's services, public health themselves, and themselves as statutory consultee in this process, they have raised no issue whatsoever with this application. Therefore, it naturally follows that as they've raised no issues, and they would have examined this at very great length, it's clearly evidenced by the work that's been done around further conditions. They have no concerns that this application as it stands now can undermine the licensing objectives. Otherwise, they would be in the room with evidence to argue vehemently against it. Okay, so we're left with representations from members of the public and representative bodies. In no particular order, we have a small faction of very vocal local residents, community groups, which does not include the hospital management whom you've spoken to, or the local surgery, who fear dire consequences, and they speculate on threats to the tranquility of on grounds of the area, on grounds of noise, proximity to the hospital, access and parking, alcohol addiction, smoking, drink driving, threats to unborn children, and the unauthorised use of hospital toilets. In no particular order, I will deal with them one at a time. Noise. There is no request for regulated entertainment entailed in this application, no live and recorded music. However, we have conceded that we would fit secondary glazing if circumstances require. There is speculation about the noise of cars on the car park at night and their headlights, but those do not attach specifically to licensable activities and could occur were people to leave the building late at night, irrespective of the building use, which is currently it's Class E, so it could be used as a restaurant, for example, even a bring your own restaurant, or a gym, or all those activities which would not necessarily include the consumption of alcohol. So we've got issues, we've got concerns raised about crime and ASB. Well, the building is already bristling with CCTV, but I point out that our client avatar is not prone to perpetrating ASB. Any member causing such issues would be denied membership forthwith, and the events we envisage are not likely to invite or result in antisocial behaviour, full stop. To remind you, Annabelle, she's a personal licence holder, fully trained in responsible alcohol retailing, but her partner, Matt, has over 20 years' experience as a personal licence holder. No issues whatsoever with any of the responsible authorities there. Now, big thing, big issue, proximity to the hospital. That's actually a planning issue under permitted uses. And for the purpose of absolute clarity, these buildings also benefit from Class E use. Okay, planning is not relevant here, and that's a matter for the planning committee, but it's come up so much in the representations, it would be remiss of me not to mention them. So the kind of things that can be conducted at that building anyway are studios, cafes, restaurants, light industrial, day nurseries and retail. Okay, planning is an irrelevant consideration, but I just thought I'd mention them anyway. That's courtesy of paragraph 14.69 of the section 182 guidance. This site is private. It does not fall within the grounds of the hospital. It is surrounded by its own gardens and car parking. Access is shared with the hospital, but the area we're seeking to license here is no closer to the hospital than other residents, a one-stop and a local cafe. This area is private property and is for the use and enjoyment of the new owners, and therefore it cannot be treated as if it were still hospital property. I believe it was sold some 6 years ago, and unless somebody can advise me otherwise, there were no restrictive covenants placed upon this building as to its use by the then vendors. Access to parking. Now, parking forms no part of the licensing regime at all. Simply does not speak to any of the licensing objectives. But these premises benefit from a minimum of 12 parking spaces. Working on the theory that people do not attend events by car, each driving their own vehicle, and the fact that Annabelle and her company encourage sustainable transport. She intends to encourage visitors to walk, cycle, use public transport, and park and ride under taxis. There will be clear signs on the site and on the website and each event invitation will come with advice about how to get there and how to access the site. I must remind you, the main town car park, I think, is 250 metres from the site, so it's well within the ambit of that. Now, on the matter of alcohol addiction, we've already explained that this is a member-only operation with signed-in guests, and anyone with alcohol abuse issues will be politely refused service. The proximity to service provision at the hospital is an interesting suggestion, but we must respectfully point out that there is a one-stop nearby selling a wide range of alcohol to any member of the public, and that alcohol's AA actually meet diagonally across from the hospital premises in St Peter's Church, the Catholic Church, across the other side of that roundabout there. We struggle to envisage how our co-working spaces and events room, with the incidental and ancillary supply of alcohol therein, will cause an additional threat to anyone blighted by addiction issues. Smoking outside's been raised. Okay, there's already adequate signage prohibiting smoking at this location. Yet, despite that, strangely enough, NHS staff employed at the hospital site do use that gap between the premises and the hospital as their smoking area when at work, along with they use their mobile phones up there as well. Despite that, we will impress on our members and our guests that there is no smoking on the site, along with no drinking of alcohol outside on our curtilage. Okay, drink driving. We have no intention of selling or supplying excess quantities of alcohol to our members who have cars on our car park. Designated premises supervisor Annabelle and her partner Matt are fully conversant with the responsible alcohol retailing in any event. Threats to unborn children. Again, this is what I describe as a moonshot representation, frankly. So people worry about pregnant mothers coming from the hospital into our premises and drinking. Well, to do that, they're going to need to have paid membership, it's 170 quid. Okay, and then they're going to need a fob, which they're not issued with immediately because they have to be keyed in. And then the alcohol has actually got to be available on site at the time these young expectant mums who need alcohol will be coming in. So it's not a 24-hour provision. Okay? The hours are brought to allow events to take place, but this is not. That is not the time that any bar will be open. And once inside the premises, there's no bar for them to present themselves to purchase alcohol. So, and if there was any such expectant mum with those kind of issues, all she's got to do is park to the one stop round the corner. Okay, I just find that the possibility of that happening is fanciful. Unauthorised use of hospital toilets. This is another moonshot representation. We've already got 3 toilets on site, one of them being accessible. We have no reason to believe that our members who are members and pay their membership fee and whatever working there, all their guests will head over the toilet to misuse the facilities in there. I mean, why would they? It's for me, it's not a real prospect. Now, public health. There's a lot of talk about public health in one of the supplementary submissions. Okay, and Jill's very helpfully furnished the panel with a supplemental report where she explains that public health is a ground to object. Now, the stats she cites apply to the entire county, and therefore would speak against the grant of any alcohol application by yourselves as a licensing subcommittee, no matter where. Okay, that's fine. It's fine. She's perfectly entitled to her opinion, but she cannot stand in the shoes of the Director of Public Health, who is a representative, a consultee, and a responsible authority, and who raises no objections to this application. And we talked to you briefly about fear and speculation. This is an evidence-based. Decision-making process. So para 9.43 of section 182 guidance says that your determination should be evidence-based. That's coming from the Secretary of State. Okay. There is no evidence that this lady is not a fit and proper person, lacks the behaviour, attitude, skills and knowledge to run this place. And there is no evidence of antisocial behaviour, noise, crime, violence, and underage mums coming in. There is simply no evidence for you. And therefore, we are where we are. And that's supported by the stated case of Daniel Thwaites and Wirral Magistrates back in 2008. Where such things were decided upon by the judge who's our Honour Justice Black And at paragraph 63 of her judgment in that case, she explains that she must be actuated by proper evidence of real problems. There is no proper evidence of real problems in front of you. What you have is fear and speculation about what might or might not happen at some undisclosed point in the future. And fear and speculation, I'm afraid, cannot be evidence. Okay, so in the event that there are any problems, which are not in my case is there won't be, but in the event that there are any problems, you have the powers to sort it out under section 51 review procedure under the 2003 Act. That is what you are here for. So were you to grant the licence today and there were problems, boom, you can stop them. Okay, so Chair and members of the committee, that's the outline of the nature and extent of the application before you. Our position is that there is nothing here that suggests that the licence and objectives will be undermined or will fail to be promoted by Gather or Ms. Giacini. If you don't mind, I'll rest there and deal with any other objections levelled against this modest and well-conditioned application in summary at the conclusion of the Thank you very much.
Thank you. We go to the licensing officer again, Ross. Actually, I've got no questions. Any other persons with questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, various scrappy bits of paper here. I know you put your emphasis, Nick, on this being a private property, but the private property is on an NHS site. And thinking about the applicant's video, you actually acknowledged very, very openly, and I have the transcript here, you said, Annabelle, we are on a hospital site and, you know, we need to respect that. And I really welcomed that acknowledgement, and I was disappointed not to hear that from Nick today. I was also disappointed.
So is there a question, Jim?
There is, yes. I'm disappointed, and perhaps you can explain why you have denied the specific concerns about public health implications and health implications of having licensed premises on a hospital site. This is a unique situation, surely. You reckon? Sorry, please let me finish, but I have several questions.
Let me just answer the question first of all, if you wouldn't mind. It's okay. Right, the first question is it an NHS site? Is it a hospital site? No, it isn't.
It's a private property.
No, hang on, you'll let me answer the question, you know, Chair, please. Right, it is not an NHS site. It was 6 years. It is adjacent to an NHS site. Now, when Annabelle, you've watched that video, as you all have, and you can obviously look at it again in recess, she's talking about car park. And she's talking about people parking in her car parking spaces as opposed to parking in the spaces used by doctors and nurses and visitors. And that's the reference to the NHS site it's about. Being an NHS site or not being an NHS site is not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of law. It's privately held ground. It's not an NHS site. Thank you.
Given that you're sticking by the matter of law, I wondered what consideration the applicant had given to the needs of end-of-life patients and patients with dementia, where shorter licensing hours aren't really a solution to potential distress.
We've given it a lot of thought. Okay. We told our staff and our visitors that they can't smoke up that end, that they can't take drinks outside, and the nature of what we are proposing and the amended hours reflect those concerns.
I'll come back in my statement to a question of dispersal noise, but the question I'd intended to ask was actually to seek clarification on the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises, and specifically on whether walk-in sales will be possible, because it's kind of a little bit like the numbers and the potential number of people on the premises. Things slide around, and the recent content on this in the applicant's supporting information is about the retail of locally sourced, ethically produced, quality and artisan alcohol products for consumption off the premises. And the applicant has previously talked about collaborative arrangements with local breweries and distillers. And that supporting information from the licensing guys says, no doubt the majority of these sales will be made online and will be for home delivery via courier. But if the majority will be for home delivery, that leaves open that a smaller proportion could potentially be walk-in sales. The hospital, as you know, treats alcohol-dependent patients. The availability of alcohol and that immediate exposure to alcohol is a key determinant of relapse. This is actually where the concerns about those moonshot expectant mothers came from, by the way. And what you said today, Nick, actually differs from what was said, 10 days ago, a fortnight ago. Today,
Can I just interject there? Can you please be succinct and come to the question?
I'm asking if Nick or the subcommittee could clarify, is this about home deliveries or pickup? And I have heard nothing that actually excludes walk-in sales. And if walk-in sales can't be excluded by Nick, would the subcommittee give consideration to a condition that does exclude those sales because of the risks to alcohol-dependent patients treated at the hospital?
I'm going to bring Nick in now. Okay.
I'm struggling to identify what the question is there, because it's sort of, I'm going red. Am I, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're
okay. Honestly, it's such a meandering sort of ifs and whats and what he thinks and whatever. Look, okay, you've got off-sales. I walk down any high street in this town, in this city, in this county, in this country, will show that shops are struggling. Okay, the majority of sales are done online. Okay, these guys produce artisan, expert collaborations with their coffee, the coffee operation, and that manifests itself in the form of coffee liqueurs and coffee stems. That's what they sell. Okay? Most of it goes out the door in transit once or twice a week. Okay, it is perfectly possible for people to go there. This is what we're asking for, and actually buy some over the counter. Okay, there's nothing outrageous about that. There's nothing unreasonable about that, especially considering you've got a one-stop round the corner with a massive supply of alcohol freely available to anybody. Okay, so somebody comes in and they want to collect an order they placed online, and they've ordered 2 bottles of coffee liqueur. And while they're there, they say, oh, hang on, actually, it's been going particularly well. I've just had a phone call from the Devonton, Leamington or whatever they come from. Can we have another bottle of coffee liqueur? You're not going to say to them, no, you can't. You've got to leave.
Is this a question or?
No, I'm not giving you an answer.
Nick speaking. I won't have any disturbance. Okay.
Okay. So, but it was quite a long question, and I'm giving an explanation. You certainly don't expect someone to have to go back to where they come from, make another online order to purchase that extra bottle. That is the nature. That's why I showed you the coffee roastery on that video. That is the nature of it. There will be no shop and counter, somebody waiting there between 12 and 5, whatever it is, every day, waiting for people to walk in off the street. It's not that kind of operation that has been proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I'm going to move us on. Any other questions?
Yes.
Right. Take your seats and put your mic on.
Hello, I'm Jane Cullen. I'm here as a local resident, and I also have a professional background of about 25 years in the NHS. Okay, so the question, Nick, is on transport. I wanted to check whether you are aware that the town bus service finishes at 6 p.m. and doesn't run at all on Sundays. I'm aware that there's an expectation that people will use local sustainable transport to access the site. Also,
Can we deal with the question? What was the question on that, please, Jane?
whether you're aware of that fact
Yes, we're aware, thank you.
and you have any comment on.
Yes, we're aware. The question was, are we aware? Yes, we are aware. And we've also explained how we're going to encourage people to visit the site map.
You're also, I believe, putting up signage to encourage people to use taxis. Would that be correct?
Certainly, I'm not sure about signage, but oh yes, indeed, yeah, that's a condition expected from yeah, we are, yeah.
As somebody who has lived in Ludlow for many years, I know that taxis, particularly in the evening, are actually very hard to access and get hold of.
With respect, ma'am, that's not anything to do with licensing.
Can I interject again? I have to say transport is not one of the 4 objectives of the licensing here. It may come under planning or other, but it's not one of our objectives to look at today. Sorry.
Could I just make a point as a local resident about...
It's a question time. You make your points later on in the hearing, ma'am. Bye. Sorry, I don't want to take over your job, Jane.
The right time.
My name is Peter Salter. I'm also a local resident. In relation to the license, in relation to the building, why do you think that you want to have a license in this building?
Right.
Hang on, sorry, I haven't finished the question. When there are so many local shops which are empty in Ludlow, which it seems to me that by making this premises and the licensing, you're starting to hollow out the urban centre of Ludlow by having these peripheral licenses and buildings on the
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, fair point, but again, it doesn't come within the brief of the license.
You're absolutely right, sir, but I can answer it. I can answer it. I've already briefed you comprehensively about the nature and extent of this license around co-working and events to support creativity and what have you at that site.
Why can't you have
Hang on, just let me answer and then you come back in again. Okay. What the chair is correctly referring to is para 14.19, which says that need for licensing a licensed premises concerns the commercial demand of another pub or restaurant is a matter for the planning authority and for the market. It is not a matter for the licensing authority in discharging its licensing functions. So I'm grateful to you, sir. So that's it's the law.
Are there any further questions?
Nice.
Yes, I'm a little bit perplexed about the applicant's pedestrian route.
Sorry, ma'am, who are you?
Linda Senior. How to get from Gather to the road. It's rather bizarre. You've probably got a copy of the hospital plan with the I'm just wondering if you think people are really going to actually come out and go around the tree and head down the middle of the road with moving cars.
Stop you there. I'm sorry, it doesn't come within the brief of the licensing committee access and egress to the site. I'm sorry.
But if it's making people get closer to the hospital, which is what are going to happen.
Sorry, it's not within the brief of this committee. If it's an issue, it will come up under planning. So it's not. We have 4 distinct things we have to watch out for on planning, right?
My representative.
Access and egress is not part of that. So have you got another question?
No, not at the moment.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Can you turn the mic off?
Oh, yeah.
Cheers. Any further questions?
Okay.
Mitty?
Yes, a lady coming, yes.
Oh,
I'm Marilyn Gaunt. I'm a resident of Ludlow.
I'm sorry, I missed your name.
Marilyn Gaunt,
Hello,
and I'm a resident of Ludlow. I just want to ask you, because as far as I know, you didn't consult anyone within hospital management or hospital staff, nor local GPs, League of Friends or Town Council or local residents, not even the Unitary Authority councillors I remember recalling from and the Boddington's post. And I'm wondering why not, because it might have highlighted the tension surrounding alcohol sales a lot earlier. And I really hope that you can find another way with alcohol and occasional big events, so that all the other great events can happen at the hospital.
Okay, well, thank you for your question, Marilyn. Just to clarify matters, we did. We spoke to NHS Property. We've spoken. There is a way of applying. There's a statutory route to applying for a premises licence. It's called the consultation period. Firstly, I let these people know over here. They let everybody know. We posted our blue notices. We put it in the newspaper. I don't think anybody, frankly, the many hundreds of comments that have appeared on Facebook, I don't think anybody can be insensible to the fact that an application's been made at this site. And we have absolutely followed the letter of the law about the application process, the consultation process, the publicity process, and the engagement process with local parties. Thank you.
Well, you have talked to the landlord, which is PropCo, which is the very organisation that refused to actually renovate the maternity wards and buildings. That's why it's been up for sale. And frankly, they're a sales group. They want to sell off this redundant buildings department of the NHS. They're not NHS people who are working for the good of patients. So I'm afraid just talking to the landlords, you could be talking to anybody.
I accept your concerns on this, but again, the applicant in the report here and the reports that have been produced by statutory bodies has done what is expected of them under the current regulations. Now, there are things that we would like to have done maybe, but the applicant has followed the letter of the law right down the line.
I'm not saying that the applicants haven't done that. I'm just saying that whether they like it or not, it's a private island within the middle of an NHS site. And the people who are running that site have shown great concern themselves through objections. Obviously, they're not here.
You're going into a statement now rather than a question.
I'll end it at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, committee members, Mary. Thank you. All right. Any other person who's made a representation to the application will be given an opportunity to outline their case. Presentations will take place in the following order. We'll go firstly for Sue Campbell. Yes, please. The one thing I will say, not to you, Sue, but to everybody in general, if you can try and with your case, try not to repeat things that we've already heard this morning. Thank you.
I'll try.
And
Yes.
My name is Sue Campbell. I live just up the road from the hospital. I've worked in the hospital, and so I have quite a bit of knowledge being in the old poorhouse supervisor's office of watching the comings and goings. So I think bottom line in what I put in the representation was that there is an obvious and a conflict between the patients staff and relatives of the hospital and the licensing of the studios, no matter how you look at it. Both are clearly advantageous for Ludlow, but placed in close proximity will lead to conflict. Both the activities of the studios would benefit Ludlow in a different venue, perhaps making use of some of the existing facilities that there are in the town. Events with alcohol in particular, there's no place within close proximity to a hospital, which I've seen as I've been there. It's very difficult to put them in two different places.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's a planning issue.
Next column from Jane Column.
I'd just like to confirm at the outset that I do support the original proposal for small-scale, artisan, non-intrusive activities.
Thank you.
Which I think would be very good for local businesses and creative individuals. However, just to reiterate the comments that have been made, and I think are in the opposing comments from medical teams on the ground, alcohol has no place on a hospital site, and I go as far as to say it would be disrespectful to those people receiving care, their families and the NHS staff who are looking after them. And there is likely to be potential disruption caused by traffic and people moving in and out of the Gatherack building, which may well have a negative impact on the well-being of patients, frail elderly, people with dementia who are very easily confused. And I know this from my own clinical experience by unusual sights, sounds and sudden noises. Also, I'd just like to draw the attention of the committee to the point about the 4 end-of-life beds, which are, I understand, are in close proximity to the Gatherack studios. And my own experience of my mother receiving end-of-life care in a different setting some years ago, we were very grateful that we could spend her last days with her in a quiet hospital ward where there were no intrusive or unnecessary disturbances. And I think my concern is that the proposals as they stand now would mean that it would be that sort of care for people at the end of their lives may well be compromised.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Any questions there? From?
No, so we'll deal with it all in summary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan Edwards is not attending, so we move straight to Marilyn Gordon.
Thank you. Yes, I would also like to say that I didn't object to the original planning for this site. I thought lots of very good things, and indeed, the things that you're mentioning, no one can say aren't good for people. However, I do think that basically this is, however good the intentions, that this is the wrong location for regular public events requiring alcohol consumption. But I will just go back now to say my objections were made on the 9th of January, and the twofold public nuisance and public safety issues on the site of an NHS hospital where the care of sick and dying patients is very likely to be compromised because the NHS and alcohol don't mix. And I think bigger and more informed bodies than the products objective on those grounds as well. There have been changes in the application since the 9th, but that hasn't quite changed my position, so I will be saying that. There are now there are now, and I'm pleased to say, conditions on noise control from within the unit itself. But the issue of noise when people are actually leaving the venue at closing time is still there. On this very cramped site, pedestrians and vehicles will be leaving within a few yards of each of patients, including end-of-life patients. And that's a reality that we have to consider. And what worries me is what was discussed earlier, the kind of vagueness around the number of people who will be attending the events. Is it going to be 20, up 10 to 20, which is in this application, when we've, if we've had, it's for 50 people in the application for planning, which I know is not your remit. However, I'm mentioning that. And there is a potential, and we have to speak of potentials when you're giving a licence, unless you put conditions, for up to 60, because the fire department have said that is perfectly legal and right. And so I really think that council should really need to sort of seek clarity on a maximum number and perhaps have that as a condition rather than at the moment it seems to be quite vague, saying that it's a bit confusing about just how many these different events, as opposed to co-workers at their desks and going and buying it, when it's the big, the bigger events, the cinema or perhaps music, which has been mentioned. It's not in this. I know it's not in that, but it has been mentioned. And once the licence is there, nobody's going to be coming back to you and say revoke it because I have music. But it needs to be said that might happen. And you have on site made, I agree, provision for that with double glazing and heavy curtains and all that. But nevertheless, closing time is 10:30, and people will have had drinks up to 9 o'clock, and they'll be coming out. And quite honestly, I'm not even going to have a couple of drinks. It's not about being rowdy and violent and antisocial, and doors will be slamming and cars will be revving, they'll be coming up. And I just feel that I think it is a remit of the licensing body to understand and take on board that the access road itself is on NHS property and is quite narrow and not very wide.
Has anybody got any questions? Or
I've still got to do the public health, the public safety aspect, which relates to the purpose there.
Right.
So, on the matter of public safety, patients are the most vulnerable members of the public, and ambulance access is a priority at all times. And the ambulance access to the wards is that route that is shared by the private business. So, what I'm trying to say is that what would happen, and yes, we're talking speculating, but what would happen were an emergency ambulance when needed to pick up a deteriorating patient. And that coincides with the end of an event where 12 or 13 cars might be driving out, an unknown currently number of pedestrians. Coming out of the main access road, which is on this cramped site. When this happens, and sooner or later it will, the safety, even life of a patient will be put at risk. And as I say, I didn't object to this site, and I commend your aspirations, but I really do feel that the licensee should take on board certain conditions and restrictions that enable. Because this is now businesses develop, and you may want to have more people than 10 to 20, and I think that has to be taken into account by councillors when looking at this request. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, again, I'll deal with it all in summary. Otherwise, we can book your lunches.
Jill George, have we got?
This is the main.
Thank you. Actually, I understand from staff that an ambulance has already been delayed and the disruption already is real and happening. My own background is as
No, you can't.
my own background
She can't give evidence of
is as an NHS clinician and clinical manager, and through Amicus and Unite, I was for very many years chair of the National Professional Committee for Speech and Language Therapists, and I also had the privilege of representing around 100,000 health workers on the union's National Executive Council.
I'm sorry, can you come to the point.
This is,
and I
this is a statement,
and I can't
and I want to
accept
introduce
your comments
my-
regarding ambulance delays, because that could be any reason, and it certainly doesn't come under the brief, the four things that we've
Okay,
got
I
here.
will
Okay.
take your
So-
advice on that, but I would ask the committee to make a point of noting the objections to this alcohol licence from 23 hospital staff and from NHS Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin, which of course is the body that this council works in partnership with, and that partnership includes developing and progressing your drugs and alcohol policy. I think it is really significant that there is a weight of opposition to this from people who understand and know and have worked in the NHS. I am worried about licensed premises on or adjacent to an NHS site for consumption on site and for retail, because however accidentally we're setting up the idea in people's heads that there's a relationship there, that perhaps the NHS is supportive of this project, that perhaps the NHS supports drinking alcohol. The risk is that we erode a very, very important public health message in a way that does not apply at one-stop shops or the pub down the road. This is different. This is a unique national situation. I'm very, very disappointed that the issue of dispersal noise has just not really been covered today. We know that alcohol is a disinhibitor. We know that people are going to be a little bit loud after a couple of drinks. We also know there's real uncertainty, genuine uncertainty about the numbers who will be on the premises at any given time. There is a real risk, given the cramped nature of the site, given, and this was why someone was talking about exit routes earlier, given that the little red line on the map showing where people are meant to leave is actually a little bit of a figment of imagination. People leaving the site will be passing within a few yards of the end of life rooms, the 4 end of life rooms, and perhaps before taking a decision, you might wish to visit the site yourself and see for yourself. I want to just very briefly talk about 2 personal things as an illustration of points I've made in my representation. I had a family member with severe dementia. This was my dad. And I remember how upset he got. For him, not noise, but visual things that were unexpected or different. But he could get massively distressed and completely distraught and bewildered when something happened that was out of his realm. For him, it was visual stimuli. For many other patients with advanced dementia, it's noise. Unless this subcommittee is confident that there will not be dispersal noise that affects patients with dementia, I really worry, because seeing the impact on my dad, you would never want to put someone through that deliberately. And the other personal experience, and it's a difficult one, I remember my lovely partner who died in one of those end-of-life rooms at Ludlow just under 4 years ago. He was semi-conscious. He was very, very frightened. Because it was quiet, I could talk him down and reassure him. And I did that for many, many, many hours. And noise outside would have been upsetting for him and upsetting for me. And I absolutely believe that. And you know, the thing about, excuse me, the thing about death, yes, it finishes for the person who dies, but for the person who's bereaved, you remember the good bits and the bad bits, and it stays with you and you don't forget. And the reduction in licensing hours is not an adequate mitigation, because we are guaranteeing that some people who are dying will be disturbed by dispersal noise. I think Gather's a great project. I agree with what other people have said. Do it. Please do it. But also, please take the alcohol sales and the larger events somewhere else go down the route of exploring that collaborative arrangement with other premises in Ludlow, because the personal costs for the most vulnerable people in Ludlow town, the personal costs of not doing that are very, very high indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Next, Peter Salter.
I'm interested in your proposition.
In relation to my compliment.
Interested in your proposition for Ludlow as a settlement. I believe that such a settlement as Ludlow should have its centres and its sense of interest in the place, and I feel that there should also be quieter places in Ludlow. And what's tending to happen now is that on the periphery of Ludlow, we are starting to have these other centres. And that means that the centre of Ludlow is going to get more and more bereft of all these very interesting projects. And so I personally think that the licensing is just another nail in the coffin of Ludlow as an urban centre. And I believe that there should be places in these urban centres in which there are quiet residential streets and not everything the same. You know, this is going to be another Ludlow brewery site, which is another peripheral site.
There isn't, but that's okay. Thanks very much indeed for your contributions.
Peter, any questions for Peter?
No, thank you. No.
Linda Senior.
Yes,
My main representation concerns dispersal noise, which we've already talked about a little. There will be more noise around that area after people have been drinking alcohol, and that will affect both patients at the hospital, but also residents. So for me, it constitutes a public nuisance. I'm local to the hospital. I live just across the road in New Street, and there is a huge issue in the streets around there with parking. I very rarely can park outside my own house or even in my own street, and I'm forced to park in the lay-by in New Road, which is adjacent to the hospital. There are only 12 parking spaces, I understand, for, sorry?
13, I think.
13.
It should be relined.
It should be 12.
Yeah,
And it won't be enough. So there will be people looking they'll either park illegally. I know you're going to put up some, I think the NHS are providing cameras, so presumably people won't be trying to park in the NHS part, but they will be going around the local streets looking for spaces. They'll be parking in the lay-by, and they will be parking in either New Street or Dodmore Lane, which are really difficult to find spaces in. So they're going to be cruising around, creating vehicle emissions and causing a problem because there won't be room for them to park in that car park. If there are only 12 spaces, it's simply not going to be enough. And coming back to the dispersal noise, I'm concerned about, like everyone has already mentioned, nearby wards and the end-of-life rooms, particularly in the summer when windows will be open. So any noise being produced by people leaving, leaving the area, the noise will be travelling straight into those rooms through their windows, which they obviously need to be kept open during the hot summer months. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Linda?
No, sir. No, but thank you, sir.
Okay. And Councillor Ginger,
Not
not here. Okay. We have two speakers supporting the application. Lorraine Lawrence.
I'm Hinson. Hello, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm Lorraine Lawrence. I'm a retired GP. I worked for 45 years in the health service, and in all that time, I have a lot of experience with what's been talked about. One of the things that I'd like to say is I fully support this application. The reason is because I know the applicants extremely well. They are very professional. They have a very successful business, and I've watched that grow over the 7 years that I've known them. I also know them to be totally honest, totally in control of their lives. I believe that there have been things said, and I refute everything that has been put on social media. Don't need to go into that. The people that have put it know who they are and know that they have been saying things that are totally untrue relating to alcohol use and other use. That is wrong. And I say that as a medical professional. If anybody wants to come and talk to me about it afterwards, they may do that. I also want to say that I think the use of the patients in the hospital, end of life, patients with Alzheimer's, as an emotive tool is extremely unpleasant. I have looked after end-of-life patients for many years. I had a surgery with an end-of-life ward underneath ours. I can tell you that hospitals are very noisy places. These wards are kept as quiet as they can be, but there is always some noise in corridors, people coming and going, visitors opening doors. It is impossible to keep any ward on a hospital totally quiet. If any of you have been in hospital, you know that. And most of us who've been in hospital can't wait to get out to our nice quiet bedrooms. End-of-life care is an extremely emotive subject, and we care for our dying the best we can. We also know that people who are going in and out of Gather will be responsible adults. They are not teenagers. They are not going in to drink to excess. They are going to have a few social drinks if there is a meeting going on, which won't be every week. If there's a film being shown, which may be once a month, once every 2 months, who knows? And these are artisan films. These are films that are dedicated to the work that these people do. They are creatives. Now, I'm not a creative and I don't understand it, but my son is, and he works in this kind of environment. They go in and out. They're not all there together. They are there for a few hours. They relate to each other. They pass ideas, etc. So this is a wonderful thing for Ludlow because it's keeping our young people in Ludlow with somewhere to go and work, somewhere to socialise responsibly. And they will be responsible when they leave that environment. I would also point out that the walk-in centre or minor injuries unit, I think it's called, at Ludlow Hospital is open till 8 p.m. every night. I have been there at 7:30 with grandchildren, etc. There are people coming and going. There is noise. There are cars leaving the car park. It is a noisy place. And I think to say that we somehow have this silent environment for our ill people and our neighbours is not true. It's also on the corner of 2 very busy roads coming in and out of Ludlow. People use it all the time. We cannot keep places silent. And I think that it is wrong to use emotive subjects to try and stop something that is actually going to be of great benefit to the area. If the wards find, and I trust the staff on wards to say, that there's noise. If there was noise, if there was disturbance, they only have to go and speak to these very responsible professionals and say, look, we're having a bit of a problem here. Yeah. And it would be dealt with. I do not think that that is not the case. So I would
like to lend my support. I hope my professional opinion is of his sound health. And I would refute what has been said so.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Well, other than say,
Me?
thank the doctor
Yeah.
for her service and thank you for turning up. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
I do have questions. Should I go up there or?
No, if you.
No. Oh, you want me to go back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to get a microphone for Jill?
No, shall
I
I?
want to borrow my spare microphone, Jill.
Oh, I'll simply shout if I may. I'm not going to risk being emotive, but I do think it's important to remember that this is about real human beings and the most
Point of
vulnerable.
order. If this is not on mic, it cannot be heard on the recording.
In that case, I'd best borrow your microphone.
It's on.
Wow, what fancy equipment, eh? Thank you. Yeah, I'm not going to be emotive, but I do think we need to hold on all the time to the reality that this is about an exceptionally vulnerable population, the most vulnerable people in Ludlow. Specifically, the questions for yourself, Lorraine. Are you personally familiar with the end-of-life care rooms at Ludlow Hospital?
No, I haven't.
Because when I was there, the environment was very, very, very quiet and peaceful indeed. And that was with the window open throughout the day and the night that I was there. That's the first question I had. 2 others.
No, that's very important. I've not worked in this area. However, I do know that the windows are nowhere near the area in question.
No, they aren't.
They aren't.
They are.
They're not. Anyway, that's, as you say, that is not to do with this, is it? No. I will say that, of course, I am aware that they are human beings in there, and I'm exceptionally pleased that the rooms are quiet. That's wonderful. If they're quiet and that quiet all day long in the position that that hospital's in, with the amount of traffic that goes in and out, people and cars and ambulances, then that would not be disturbed by a few people coming in and out of a building. We've already heard that the whole 20 people won't be there at once. That is not the way co-working works. And if there's been an evening event, they will be asked to leave quietly. They will be told there are end-of-life patients just over there. Please, will you be quiet? And I do not think that a few glasses of wine are going to make them noisy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, 2 other questions. And again, these are simply factual points. Are you aware that the minor injuries unit, which, yes, is one of the noisier settings, is at completely the other end of the hospital site, with no possibility at all that sound would carry from the minor injuries unit to the inpatient ward, end-of-life care, and so on?
Well, the entrance I've been in is actually very near the car park and very near to where...
2 car parks, different car parks, Lorraine.
I don't think...
Different ends of the site.
If that is
sorry.
Sorry, I'm going to interject here.
Main entrance is.
We'll stop there. If you've got one more question.
The final question was just to ask, are you aware, Lorraine, that the hospital site is set very far back from the road and there is minimal possibility of road noise from Gravel Hill affecting inpatients? What we're talking about is new dispersal noise, more traffic, more people. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. And I wonder how well you actually know that site.
Well, I haven't worked in it. And I haven't stood in it listening to noise, but I don't think that's relevant, is it?
No.
Sorry.
Sorry. Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Councillor Hans Bottington.
Thank you, Chair. I might just mention I'm not sitting here out of privilege. It's simply I have severe mobility issues today, and this is to support me. But I fully understand why there is confusion between planning and licensing.
It's not an easy crossover, and it's quite difficult in this case. I mean, there are 4 planning applications in at the moment for the hospital site, 3 relating to the 68 parking spaces, which are NHS parking spaces on the site. And accommodation of ambulances, disabled people, anything you'd expect. Those will be decided by planning officers, probably rather than going to the planning committee. We don't know about the gather application, but those are planning issues. The planners or planning committee will also decide upon the maximum number of people. So it's not a licensing issue, it's actually a planning issue. And they'll do that when they look at the Class F license. Again, getting in and out of the site, and I've been a councillor for this area 10 years, and parking is difficult. Parking, I don't know anywhere in Ludlow where parking isn't difficult. This is Ludlow. But people walk around our town. The numbers are very high. If there's an event in the town centre, people walk. But again, really, that's the planning issue. Let's come to health. Look, there are objections from nurses for hospitals, not all of them, and the Friends of Ludlow Hospital. But I note the Community Health Trust doesn't object. The Station Drive Surgery, which supplies GP services to the hospital, did not object. The Integrated Care Board did object. Strange, sorry, it's the only handwritten thing I've ever seen coming out the NHS. But I'm not clear how authoritative it is. But that doesn't actually mention alcohol. And there's no mention of alcohol. That is concerned with an entertainment there fairly near the hospital. We've established, I'm not going over this ground, but we established this really wasn't an entertainment value. Smoking is an issue, because smoking will not be allowed in the building or outside. And the whole hospital would be a smoke-free zone, which it ought to be at the moment under rules, but it will be. So we've heard about the control of drinks. I won't go over that, other than to say that, the party means never makes sense because you're not allowed to have any vertical drinking. I've never been to a party where I'm not allowed to stand up and drink. And that's really important. This is not a bar. If it was, it would require a different planning class use, civil generous, and that would be a matter for the planning committee. And it wouldn't get it, just say that. Now, finally on this, I'm actually really excited about this project. It's in East Hamlin, one of the most socially deprived areas of the county, in the 10% most deprived areas in England. We never get investment there. This is really important because the ability to interact with the local community and of course beyond. But that is important, and there are plans which are underway to do that and make that work. Now, some we can't discuss because they're not finished yet. Another one, which I think is particularly important, that before this all got rather heated, I was talking to the Integrated Care Board about creative therapy, cultural therapy, art therapy, different terms. We were talking about that, with the hope of working with Gather, other organisations around us, working with the hospital and those patients that would benefit from that therapy. And I think this is really important. We've actually had to suspend discussions because we don't bring the ICB into a controversial area. And as soon as we get this over and the planning over, I'll be back on that. And we'll get something to work. And it's good because we're good at that sort of thing, and that level of course can. So when I first saw this, and I didn't know what was coming, didn't know it was coming, and when we first saw it, I was just coming out of COVID, so it took me a little while. I thought, I'll find out more. And then I realised, wow, I wish I'd thought of that. So this has my full support, and I think it does mean the limited way of selling alcohol to make it work, and also to ensure, it's fully subsidised by a coffee house. This is unique, it's not subsidised by the public purse. The whole project has been private sector. I think it's just so exciting, so unique, and the alcohol, limited amount, is part of the offer that will make it work. So I urge the committee to support this. Thank you.
Councillor Hollington, any questions?
Yeah.
Take you first.
Marie Smith, Ludlow. We used to have a pub right on that corner, and it was so loud. It was terrible. One drink and you're drunk. Do you agree with that? That's my question. Anybody who drinks one drink is then drunk. You do not have the facilities. That's my opinion. That's my question.
The answer is no. No. There's no evidence of that whatsoever.
Is anybody else speaking?
Andy Bollington.
Why? Sorry, Peter. Can you come to the mic? It's all being recorded.
Why you talked about these wonderful activities? Why is alcohol necessary with those activities? I don't understand that.
So they're selling you.
Well, that's
so I'm sure this will come back in summing up. I should say that I haven't been collaborating with these guys presenting before, and I'm sure they'll come in summing up.
I will.
But fundamentally, the scheme needs to watch its face financially. There isn't public money backing this, and there may be at some point in the future grants are available, but this has to make its way. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. I'm going to move on to the next person, actually.
Yeah, just quickly, Andy. Of course, you mentioned the Integrated Care Board have objected. I'm not sure you mentioned that the 23 staff on the inpatient ward, in a quite astonishing display of unity, have put in a joint objection. The Hospital League of Friends, of course, have objected. Station drivers, has objected to planning, but made specific reference to alcohol in their submission on planning.
Can you come to the question, please?
Do you accept that there is something of a consensus amongst local health leaders and frontline staff that this is not a particularly advisable project?
We are here to discuss licensing and the evidence before us. Now, I did mention, I said there was an objection from nurses and the hospital, that was mentioned. I said there was an objection from the friends, but there is no objection to the station drive. It is not in the data board. When it comes to planning, that's a different matter. It's not before us.
But you do accept they made reference to alcohol and the inappropriacy of alcohol use in that planning objection?
It's not before us today.
Any further questions? Panel? No? Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you.
and forgive me, some of this might should know by now, shouldn't I? Sorry, and some of this might cross over with Councillor Bonington, so bear with me, but it's very short.
Right.
I would like, I'm going to read.
What's your name, sorry?
Councillor Tracy Huffer. I'm Councillor Huffer, Huffer. I've been called Pepper, but you know, Huffer is better.
Huffer's great.
And I'm councillor for Ludlow East Division, which actually borders the hospital. So the division that Andy has alluded to, the area of deprivation, is my division. I'd like to offer my support to this application. I believe there is no logical argument for not doing so, given the benefits it offers, and I think it is one of the most exciting regeneration projects that I have seen in my 20 years plus as a Ludlow councillor. Ludlow is fortunate that someone has chosen to put funding into a redundant building that requires extensive renovation. In my opinion, this is the best possible outcome for a building that could never return to its former usage. I'd like to say I would never support anything that would be detrimental at all to patient care or the hospital. Having worked in the NHS for 42 years, including over 10 years at Ludlow Hospital, I have fought on numerous occasions to secure the future of our hospital, marching, lobbying and attending more meetings than I care to remember. I do not believe that an alcohol licence with restricted conditions, as advised by Public Protection, will have any detrimental effect on the hospital's patients, staff or visitors. And any suggestion that pregnant women attending the hospital will be unduly influenced is quite frankly an insult to women. I don't recall a similar argument when One Stop was approved, which includes an off-licence facility. Social media has fueled misinformation about the application. It's been labelled as a party venue that will encourage antisocial behaviour, alcoholism and smoking, causing nurses to leave and acute distress to patients. I understand and respect people's views and the very serious issues around alcohol dependency, but the campaign against this application and the tender has been led by emotion and not facts. Many people informed an early opinion without fully understanding the amended conditions, such as reduced hours for serving alcohol, regulated access and no alcohol consumption outside of the building. The vendor has been fully cooperative and taken on board advice from Public Protection, yet a small minority of very vocal community members remain determined to prevent the project moving forward. This would be a huge lost opportunity for Ludlow and the local community. With regard to the sweeping statement that local GP is against the project, I, like Andy, cannot see any clarification that Station 5 Surgery have written a formal objection. I cannot see it on the list of objections. Given the supposed strength of being against the project by healthcare bodies, I am also surprised by the preliminary representation from NHS at Shropshire, which doesn't even mention alcohol. It is also important to know that several objections have been drawn after establishing the full facts around the alcohol licence and gaining better understanding of the project and its aim. Parking issues have been raised, but there is an application currently in with Shropshire Council for an ANPR parking. I have to conclude that there is no evidence to suggest that this venue will support drunken and disorderly behaviour or parking issues, and I ask the licensing committee to base their decisions solely on facts and not scaremongering opinions.
Yeah, well done. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Hoffman?
I've personally never suggested that there will be drunken, disorderly behaviour, but the question to you, Tracy, is do you accept that most people, which one assumes will include people attending gather events, do tend to become a little bit more disinhibited and a little bit louder after they've had a couple of drinks? And do you accept that there is currently a lack of clarity about the number of people who will be attending licensed premises?
No, I don't need that. Sorry, Jill.
Thank you. Right, now moving.
Just one more question, please. Could I ask a question?
Oh, no. What's this going on?
He just told me from. we're being assured that there won't be any not disruptive behaviour, but noise disrupting what goes on in the end of life wards and in the wards in general. Do you think that there could be, if it turned out that there were problems and there were complaints about that, do you think it could actually put the future of the community hospital at risk? Because if those wards and end of life rooms cease to be, then the hospital itself would be threatened.
No, not in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on to closing remarks from everybody. And we're going to start with the licensing officer. I would ask that you keep comments brief. I think we've had quite a good airing of the case from both sides. So we'll start with the licensing officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just go over what you're here today for. So it's to consider and determine the application. To do this, you must give appropriate weight to the steps that are necessary to grant the 4 licensing objectives. Any representations, the 182 Guidance and Licence Act 2003 and Shropshire Council Licensing Policy 2019 to 2024. You then may grant the application in full or in part, subject to such conditions deemed necessary and appropriate to the 4 licence objectives. You may also refuse if deemed appropriate again in relation to the 4 licence objectives. Your decision must be justified and provide supporting evidence after all people and involved parties today and anyone else who hasn't turned up. The decision can be appealed within 21 days of all parties receiving the decision notice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we question now any other persons? Bearing in mind, we're not going to repeat what we've already said.
No.
Are you asking for summary, sir? Because I didn't know.
I'll be coming.
Right, I'm with you.
Okay. So it's basically any other persons now, and then the applicant last.
I seem to be picking up that there's an attempt to compromise of the 2 establishments which don't really go together. And part of me feels that a lot is being promised in terms of the licensing that will probably go by the wayside.
Yeah,
Can you
I mean,
give your name?
sorry, Jill George. This is an emotive subject, and it's an emotive subject because it's about real and very vulnerable people. The reality of this site is it is very, very small and very, very cramped. The absolute reality is that patrons leaving gather events will be walking very, very close indeed, about the length of a parked car away to the end of life rooms, and certainly within hearing distance of the inpatient beds as well. The challenge with seeing reduced hours as a solution is that that is not adequate mitigation for patients with dementia who can't turn their dementia on and off, and it's not adequate mitigation for dying patients who can't choose the point in time at which they will lose consciousness or, of course, die. And I think the appeal to the applicant very much echoes what the previous person said. Great activities, fantastic project. Please continue with the bulk of those activities on that site. But for large events and for events with alcohol, please find an arrangement to take them elsewhere. If the subcommittee does approve this licence, and I very much hope that you do not, because in national terms, by golly, you're going out on a limb if you do. But if you do, then please look at really, really stringent conditions, particularly around the number of people attending events. Because actually, I'll tell you what, people attending gather events are no different physiologically from the rest of us. And if they have a couple of drinks, they will tend to become more disinhibited, just as all of us do when we consume alcohol. Thank you.
She's very disinhibited when she's at milk.
Okay, looking round, anybody else wish to make a closing statement? And I'll go to the supporters now. Councillor Boddington.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've summarised what I need to say. Tracy? Yeah, Tracy's in the same position.
Okay, Dr. Lawrence.
I mean, I would say that, of course, we all know that. Sorry, I forgot one. Yes, I would just say on the point of disinhibition, yes, of course, alcohol is a social disinhibitor. It loosens up people's talking. They're more likely to talk to each other. But anybody who's responsible doesn't leave a place where they have had a few drinks, whether it be a party, a gathering, where you've watched a film, indeed the assembly rooms where there's a large bar and a lot of drinking going on during the intermission of films, etc. I've been to many an event there, and people do not leave laughing, shouting, disturbing the neighbours, of which there are many. People are responsible. We're adults, we're not children, and the people that are going to go together are going to be just as responsible as the rest of us are when we have had a few social drinks.
Thank you. Yes.
Just a small closing comment from Marie Smith. I was a steward at the assembly rooms, and you, again, don't want to be there when they're leaving. It is noisy, it is messy, and when they drink, it is worse because they're still up in the bar and we can't even get them out. I know it's not going to be a bar, but any drink, and you are in.
Sorry,
you are.
I don't think this is a comment.
Thank you.
No, he's been confident of this.
Yeah, because I've not been
the
responding
applicant.
individually. I'm going to whiz through the sort of general thingy, what they're saying, then I've got a little sort of summary paragraph or two to say at the end. Right. Sue Campbell talks about conflicts caused by licensing. This premises next to a hospital containing patient staff and residents. That's a planning issue, not relevant here. Sue Callum says that alcohol has no place on an alcohol site. Two things to say about that. Police officer for 30 years. I've been met to many do's involving alcohol on NHS sites, to social clubs within them. Well, you can shake your head, Jill, it's a fact. Okay, right. Firstly, secondly, this is not a hospital site. That is not a matter of opinion. That is a matter of law. They sold it 6 years ago with no restrictive covenants on it. End of. Saying it's disrespectful to sell alcohol near a hospital. Again, that doesn't speak to any of the licensing objectives, and it's a planning matter. Marilyn, wonderful. She says, however good an intention it is, it's at the wrong location. Again, that's a planning issue. She's talking about the potential for music and things like that. There's no music entailed in this application at all. It is just fear and speculation. That is excluded. Okay, we've got talking about traffic part. Are you going to heckle me or am I going to speak?
Sorry, I really must insist that Nick is given the chance to finish his statement.
Apologies.
Okay, traffic, parking and access. Again, planning, again, it's to do with, doesn't speak to any of the licensing objectives. Reduced hours. Do you know what? Been a licensing officer for many years as police officer and then 5-6 years doing this. The drinking up time on this application is 1.5 hours. I think that's probably a world record. I have never heard of such a long drinking up time. I'm corrected by my colleague here, my former colleague here, if that is not the case. Right, saying that this is a unique national situation. No, it isn't. I have been to many social events on NHS property where alcohol is being provided. I do extend condolences to you on your losses, Jill. However, what noise outside? What noise outside? You need evidence. Yeah, people may be slightly noisier after a drink. We've got the doctor here who's gone to hundreds of do's at the assembly rooms. says it's not an issue, and you've got somebody that works there that says it is. If it is an issue, you need to report that to the licensing authority, because clearly there are breaches of licensing legislation going on in the Assembly Room, which are not subject of these proceedings. Peter Salter, great guy. I think his history is as an architect. He's going on about the need for zoning, periphery, town centres failing or whatever. All planning and permitted uses, nothing to do with that licensing committee at all. Linda Seen, yes, she's going on about dispersal noise. There will be more noise after drinking alcohol, which will affect patients and residents. There is so much fear and speculation going on that they are going to be noisy. They are going to. We'll just talk about these windows just a minute. These windows, the end of life unit, do not overlook gather. They're saying it's 10 foot. They do not. They're saying it is 10 foot from the licensable area. It is not. It is 110 feet. They talk about smoking down there. Do you know what? There is smoking down there. There's a bench and a smoking provision. It's used by the actual NHS staff, and I've got photographs of them using that area for smoking, despite all the signs there, placed there by the NHS, by the management of that site, saying, do not smoke here. The people who are smoking down there are the NHS staff. Okay, fact. Right. I cannot thank. Linda's also gone on about huge issue for parking in New Street, a lay-by in New Road. There's not enough parking. People will be parking legally. Parking is nothing to do with licensing. Okay? It's all planning. Please speak to your highways authority and your local police. Wonderful evidence from Dr. Lawrence there. Wonderful. I don't need to revisit that. Again, Councillor Boddington and Councillor Huffer have been absolutely excellent in the clarity of the evidence and the overview they've given from a local perspective, and I commend them to you. Right, summary. This hearing is simply about whether this co-working space with small events room, each catering for a maximum of 25 persons at a time, and a facility for off-sale, operating under these new proposed hours, under this operating schedule, which has been agreed with all your licensing experts in Shropshire, will it undermine the licensing objectives, or is it capable of promoting them? Very clearly, our position is that it will not undermine the licensing objectives, and it is more than capable of promoting them, assisted by a competent, capable, professional, designated premises supervisor, against whom you have taken no evidence at all. Okay, we've been able to establish that there is no history or evidence of nuisance, safety, antisocial behaviour or disorder issues with the current operation of the premises and any other like business operated by them. There is no evidence before you that the clientele using the premises will be anyone other than fob carrying members or visitors or to ticket-only events who have each individually signed in and provided comprehensive personal details. There is no evidence to show that Ms. Gersini nor Mr. Wade are not fit and proper people to run this premises. Nothing at all. This is an evidence-based decision-making process in which we're all engaged. Okay, we've got a small proportion of vocal local residents who prefer the building to be denied premises licence on the grounds of proximity to the hospital. I explained that sort of planning. Many others in Ludlow welcome this new business. You've heard from them, and therefore I urge you surely not to deny this business a premises licence on unbased fears and speculation. We've done that. We've done the fear and speculation caseload and the advice within the 182 guidance to death. I can post you to it again if you wish, but you're more than adequately legally represented. I think we've got 2 lawyers in the room, Denison. So I'll leave that with them. So consequently, I respectfully request that you do indeed grant this application for this premise licence as amended, supported by the comprehensive raft of effective conditions, agreed by all the responsible authorities being the licensing experts in this county, and any other conditions that you and your legal team and your licensing officer feel will be appropriate. And in doing so, you wish Annabelle and her Gather project every ongoing success in serving this wonderful local community in Ludlow. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Are there any other points of clarification the solicitor would like to make? No? In which case, we will now withdraw to deliberate and make a decision. The hearing will close and you can leave the meeting. All interested parties will be advised of the decision in writing within 5 working days of this hearing. The decision will be sent to you in the same way you've communicated with the licensing team prior to the hearing. If you emailed your representation to the application, you will receive the decision by email. Any party who feels aggrieved by the decision of this committee has the right to appeal to the Magistrates' Court. The appeal must be made in writing to Stafford Magistrates' Court within 21 days of this notice being received. Thank you all, and thank you all for your input. And I'll close the meeting at that.
Thank you very much.